Boker Tov. Today's daf is Daf Yud Aleph and Nizir. We left off yesterday at the second Mishnah on the page, halfway down the page. So here we're talking about where a person makes stipulations. Let's recall. Back on Daf Yomi on the base, we had a discussion. The Mishnah had said that if you accept part of the obligations of a Nizir, the obligations again being the famous threesome, can't shave, can't be mitami l'meis, and you can't drink grape products, have any grape products. So those are the three. If you accept any one of them, says the Chachamim, you accept all of it. Any one of them, if you just say from grapes or from skins or from kernels, or from a tumah, you're all of them. Rav Shimon the Gemara brought down the Brisa. Rav Shimon disagrees. He says no. If you start to enumerate them, you must enumerate them all. That's what we saw back at Daf Gimel. Here we're going to see a similar machlokas when you accept part of it, but not the whole thing. I want to make a nazir on the condition. Here's the key: al manas she'ha shosi yayin. I want to be a nazir on the condition that I can still drink wine and mitama l'meisim. I only want to accept. So what conditions are you accepting? Okay, maybe haircut, right? So hareza nazir says the Tanakh, you're a full nazir and you're obligated in all three. Basar b'kulan. Okay, that's what the Tanakh says, and there's no machlokas apparently about that. And we'll see the Gemara gives the reason why there's no machlokas is because this is called masna mashakasa b'Torah. You're making a condition what's written in the Torah. If a man says, a famous case where a man says, I want to get married to this woman, I'm marrying you, I have no obligations to you. Not intimacy, not money, not food, nothing. So what are you marrying? What are you doing? There's nothing there. You can't get married al menashe in lachai. So there's a machlokas. Rabbi says that if it's only money, it could be mochel, but other obligations he cannot. So if you make a condition on what's written in the Torah, you can't. You have no. The Torah defines what marriage is. By the way, it's between a man and a woman, right? That's a marriage, right? You can't. The Torah defines that. You can't make it up on your own. Make new conditions. So if you get married to somebody on manas that you're not going to have any of those obligations, that's not a marriage. You can't. That's not. I should say it's not a marriage. I should say that it's a marriage and those conditions are void. They're null and void. You can't make conditions on that. So the same thing over here. When you say, I'm going to be a nazir, the Torah defines what a nazir is, the three obligations. You say, on the condition, I'm only keeping one of them. That's meaningless. That's null and void. Therefore, you're a full nazir. That's what the Tanakh says here. And the Chorah, there's no machlokas. We'll see in the Gemara whether there's machlokas about this. A second case where he doesn't accept it all. Their initiations is, I know that there's a concept of nazirs in the world. Any addition nazir behind. I know that there's something about a Nazirite, right? Wasn't certain people in Israel Nazirites, right? I know that there are people who are Nazirites, but I didn't know that in what part of being what a Nazirite is entails no wine. Again, hareza aser. In other words, what do you know? You knew that there were certain things. Maybe you had to grow your hair. Okay. Again, you accepted the moment
when he declares his.
We're talking when he declares it, right? So here, in the first case, he made it as a condition. I'm getting married. I'm becoming a Nazir on the condition that I don't observe the wine and the impurity obligations. Can't make a condition against what's written in the Torah, so you're full Nazir. Here, you accepted part of it. I know that there's a Nazir, but I didn't know that it's Asr one. I thought it was just the other ones. Again, you're accepting part of it. Areza Asr, you're Asr Navim. Rav Shimon Matter, because Rav Shimon says if you weren't accepting wine, you're not accepting you have to accept all of them. If you didn't accept all of them, you're not a Nazir. Does Rav Shimon argue in the first case? That's what the Gemara is going to deal with. A third case, your daddy should Nazir Asr Abiyan. I know that a Nazir can't drink wine, and I know that he can't be Mitamiles. I thought that I would get a heter. We'll see. The Gemara says this is sort of like a sheilas chacham. I thought I would get a heter. I can't drink anything other than wine. The water here is dirty. There's nothing I could drink except for wine. I know that a nazir is usher to drink wine, but I thought that the rabbis would give me a dispensation because it's the only thing I can't drink. I can't live without wine.
So it sounds like he's saying it afterwards.
Yeah. Okay, fine. Again, so in this case, no, not later on. So in this case, it's like, yes, that could be that he said it later on in the last case, because he's saying I know I accepted as an nazir, but I thought that they wouldn't, when I made it, I thought that it wouldn't include the wine because the rabbis know I can't live without wine. Rashi learns that I am the town Chevra Kadisha. Without me, how could there be no burials? So I thought the Chacham would allow me a dispensation and say, even though I'm a Nazir, I'm allowed to drink wine, or I'm allowed to bury the dead if I was the Chevra Kadisha. Hareza mutter. Here, The Tanna Kama seems to say that's okay, that's mutter. In other words, you're not a nazir at all. Rav Shimon says, no, you are a nazir. So it's an interesting thing. So over here, you're right, Michael's right. It sounds like he accepted the full nazirus, except the Chum said, well, since the Chum say, since the person was shoel on it, he said, there's no way I can keep the wine. I didn't think I could keep that. I thought you would give me a hetzer for that. Or I didn't think you would obligate me to refrain from impurity because I'm the town Chaver Kadisha. I have to bury the dead. So again, the solution is hareza mutter, no solution of mutter. It's also, he said matter before, mutter, the whole netter's off because it's shoal on the net. Rav Shimon says it's also. Rav Shimon says you're not showing that. What's Pshat in Rav Shimon? We'll see. Rav Shimon in the middle case seems to be makel, right? He says if you didn't accept all of them, you're nothing. Here we didn't accept all of them. You are still also. So the Gemara will explain as we get at the so the first question is, pardon? Yeah. So the first question is what about in the first case when he says I'm a nazir on the condition that I'm going to drink wine or I'm going to defile myself for the dead. That is a nazir, and you're also an we don't seem to have a machlok. It says more of since you didn't accept all three obligations, you said I'm a nazir, but I want to drink wine, or I want to. You didn't accept all three. Rav Shimon says if you don't accept all of them, you're not a nazir. So why doesn't our Mishnah say Rav Shimon matter there also? Rav Shimon Reisha, he doesn't say anything in the Reisha. Seems that it's according to everybody. So there's a machlokas here what Rav Shimon holds. Rav Shimon Levi says Chalak Rav Shimon. You're right. Rav Shimon argued in the Reisha also, and he says Rav Shimon matter. It's going on both cases, the first case and the middle case. Ravina no, Reisha lo Rav Shimon. Yes, on Reisha. Why my timer? As I mentioned before, Mishum Dapim Masal Mashikasa B'Torah, B'Chal Masal Mashikasa B'Torah Torah Batal. If you make a condition on something that the Torah defines, you can't do that. The Torah says when you get married, you're chayav sherik susavana. You have to be intimate with her, provided with clothing and food, etc. And if you want to make a condition, say I'm marrying her on the condition that I don't have to do those three obligations, you're married and the condition is null and void. Here too, when you make a condition, I'm a nazir on the condition that I'm not going to drink wine, that I'm going to drink wine and I'm going to defile myself. That's you can't make such a condition. The condition is null and void, and you are a nazir. So even Rav Shimon would be mode over here. This is different because you said it as a condition. So Rav Ida is so we have two explanations. One explanation is Rav Shimon really argues with the Reisha also. That's Rav Shimon Levi. Rav Ida says no. Rav Shimon doesn't argue in the Reisha because that's Masna Mashikasa B'Torah. Your condition against what the Torah says, your condition is null and void. What about Yeshua ben Levi, who says that Rav Shimon does argue in the Reisha there too? How could he argue with the concept of Kol Masna Mashikasa B'Torah Tana Batum? I mean, in this case, this is not like the case of the woman where you marry somebody. This is like you're saying, in other words, Shimon Levi says Rav Shimon does match to this case because he's saying, listen, I want to be a nazir for hair cutting and tummy leves, but not for wine, or for hair cutting and tummy leves, or hair cutting and wine, but I want to be tummy leves. And that's what you're saying. I want to accept two or three. I want to accept one or two of the obligations, but not all three. Therefore, Rav Shimon says you're not a nazir. And Rav Shimon would argue in the Reisha too. Again, that's Rav Shimon Levi. Rav Shimon Levi is defending himself because he says, even though this lashon was almanas, I'm going to be a nazir on the condition that I'm going to drink wine, and you can't make a condition against her. But this is not exactly like a regular condition because here it's like saying, okay, I'm accepting this part, not that part, and therefore Rav Shimon would argue and say that that's mutter, you're not a full nazir. So that's the issue over here. Is this you're making a condition on something that the Torah doesn't allow you a condition? Or do we look at the details and say, like Rav Shimon holds elsewhere, unless you accept all three, you're not a nazir. And here he didn't accept all three. Tanya Klas Ravina, but we have a proof to Ravina who says that what Rav Shimon agrees with the Tanakam in our Mishnah. That's Mashakasik whatsoever. I'm already nazir. I'm going to be a nazir on the condition that I'm going to drink wine, not like a regular nazir. Or that I'm going to defile myself because I'm the Chaver Kadisha. You're a full nazir and you're also off. Why? Because you're making a condition against something the Torah, you're making a condition on one of the things that the Torah says does not allow you to make a condition. As we said, except for cases of money. But when it comes to here, it's not a question of money. You want to make condition. The Torah says these are the three stipulations for becoming a Nazir: hair cutting, wine, and Tamil Lames. And you want to make a stipulation against one of those. You want to make a condition against what's written in the Torah. You can't do that. Therefore, your condition is void. So according to this, seems that the stronger opinion is that of Ravina, that the first part of the Mishnah goes even according to Rav Shimon. Rav Shimon also says, if you say I'm a Nazir on the condition that I'm not going to keep the obligation of wine or Tumah, then your condition is null and void, and you're a regular Nazir. Then we said, what was the middle case? I know that a Nazir can't drink wine, but I didn't know. I'm sorry, the last case, not the middle case. The last case was, I know that a Nazir cannot drink wine, but I thought that the rabbis would give me a dispensation because I am addicted to wine. I can't live without wine. So what do we say there? The Chum said, Hareza Mutter, you're out of it. And Rav Shimon answers, even though apparently over here he didn't want to include wine in his acceptance of being a Nazir, he didn't want to include the wine or the Tumah obligation. And so according to that, Rav Shimon should say that it's mutter if you don't accept everything, and the Chum should say it's also as we had before. The Chum said when you accept part of the obligations, you accept all of the obligations. If you don't accept all, and if according to Rav Shimon, if you don't accept all of them, you're not a Nazir. So why over here is it the opposite? The Chum say it's mutter, Rav Shimon says it's also. Ivar Medresha also Rav Shimon matter, the other way around. Eimanami Harez also Rav Shimon matter. So let's change the last line in the Mishnah. When it says, I know that a Nazir can't drink wine, but I thought the rabbis would give me a dispensation because I can't live without wine. Or I thought the rabbis would give me a dispensation for Tumah because I am the town Chevra Kadisha. Change the words to Hareza Osir because you accept part of it. According to Chum, if you accept part of it, you accept all of it. According to Shimon, it's mutter. Say it that way. That's how you should say. So Vamar Reisha Osir Rav Shimon Mater Ema. So the first answer of the Gemara is you're right. Switch it around. The Chum say it's Osir because you accept part of it, and Shimon say it's mutter. Eboy say more, I'll tell you another answer. Lola Motek, don't switch it around. I'll tell you why. Hasam in the Reisha, go and do Nazir Michada, where you said, I want to be a Nazir from one thing. Let's say I'm not going to drink wine, but I'm not going to keep the other things. The Rabbanan Dami, I feel Nazir Miosa, Me'achas Man, having Nazir Basar. According to Chacham in the Reisha, where I said I want to be a Nazir on the condition that I'm going to drink wine every time of the mace, or I know that there's a Naziris, but I didn't know that it includes wine, but I thought it just include the other things. But the Chum say if you accept part of a Naziris, you accept the whole thing, right? You accepted one thing. You thought maybe you know the story of Shimshon, so you know about the hair. So you accepted that, it means you accept everything. I feel Nazir, so it's also Rav Shimon the Amar you have to accept all three obligations. If you didn't accept all three, you're mutter. That was the first part of the Mishnah. Let's say the middle case where you know there's Naziris, but you didn't know about the wine. The first case, we said, the very first case, I'm going to drink wine, and that might be Masal Shigas Vatar, even according to Shimon, the way Ravina learned. But in the last case, Seifa, the last case, the Nadar Mikulu, you made an edit from everything, like Michael said before, that you first said, I'm a Nazir. Then you said, well, I thought the rabbis wouldn't hold me to the wine obligation because I can't live without wine. I thought the rabbis wouldn't hold me to the Tumah obligation because I take care of the dead. I'm the grave digger here. So now you want to be Shoel, you want to go to Tar Sadarim from the rabbis on one of them. The Rabbanan, now look how the logic works. The Rabbanan, I feel Nazir when the Rabbanan say, when you become a Nazir, even if you obligated yourself only to one of the three conditions of a Nazir, also history. So if I'm Shoel on one of them, the whole thing falls away. In other words, according to Rabbanan, the way their logic works is an obligation of one is an obligation of all three. And a heter of one is also a heter of all three, because the other two follow this one. The Rav Shimon but Rav Shimon who holds that you're not a Nazir unless you accept all three obligations. And here you accepted all three, but when you only ask Sheil HaTashadam on one of them, until you get Sheil Chum on all three, you're still a Nazir. So that's why it's logical to say that in the last case, the Shitas are reversed. The Chum say it's mutter. Why? Because since you're shoel on one of the three obligations, the other two follow the three. Just like when you become a nazir, accepting one means you accept all three. When you're shoel on one, you're also shoel on all three. As according to Rav Shimon, you have to be shoel on all of them. And since you weren't shoel on them, you're only shoel either on the tumah or on the wine, you're still a nazir. That's one way to learn. And that's why it makes sense the way we read the Mishnah. The third reading, I say a third way. The first way to explain it is we switch it around. The Chum say it's also Shimon says mutter. The second way is, like we just said, that here you're being shoel on the original letter. You accepted the whole Nazir. So now you want to be shoel and say, oh, can I get out of the wine because I can't live without wine? You're being shoel on that. If you're according to Chum, if you're shoel on one, you're shoel on all three. According to Shimon, you have to be shoel on all three. We're talking here about a netter made under pressure, or where you don't have any options, meaning it's like tough luck. What do we say? So if you're back in the Durham on Daf Chaf, we talked there about a is it Daf Chaf or was it earlier on? No, it was later on. In the beginning of the third parak, the Mishnah over there says, beginning of the third parak in the Durham said that there are four Nadarim that the Chomer Mater, Nidrei Zruzin, motivation, or they were, you were trying to motivate somebody. Nidrei Havai, exaggeration, or the Shgagas made an error, and Nidrei Onsen, like under pressure, meaning it was against your will. It was you had no choice in the matter. So all those things are mutter automatically. That's what the Mishnah seemed to say. So here also he says this is also Nidrei Onsen. Why? Because since you're not able to withstand not drinking wine, you can't live without wine, or you're the only grave digger in that area, there's no option. You're forced into it. It's something that you do without. It's like against your will. You have no choice in the matter, right? So that's what we're speaking about over here too. Here we're talking about onsen. What do you mean by that? When you say over here, it's something that you couldn't handle. Meaning, I wanted to be a nazir, but I didn't, realize this is something that was beyond my. That's the right lesson I'm looking for. Beyond my control. What was the example back of beyond my control in the case of Nadarim? Back in Nadarim, I guess it was Daf Chaf, something or other. Let's see, Nidrei Onsen. Let's say he says, I make a netter, or I you that you're going to eat with me, or that I force you to eat with me, and then somebody got sick. So it was a circumstance beyond your control. That's called Nidrei Onsen. Here too, this is Nidrei Onsen. Why? Because you thought you'd be a nazir, and you realize you can't live without wine, or there's nobody else to bury. So therefore, this is Onsen, and therefore what? So what's the machlokas of Shimon and the Chacham in our Mishnah? Rav Shimon says it's also when you try to get out of it, you're still a nazir, and the Chacham say it's mutter. So the Gemara explains. We're plucked at the Shmuel Varasi, and the machlokas of Shmuel Varasi over there in the Nadarim when it comes to Nidrei Onsen. That's time. Arba Nadarim mitir Chachamim. The Chacham were matter four kinds of Nadarim. Nidrei Zruzin, when you did it simply just to motivate somebody, you wanted to instigate them to do something and not do something. Yeah. Or Nidrei Havai, exaggeration. If I saw a flying cow over here. Or Nidrei Shgagos, you made it by mistake. You didn't realize you made a netter that you're not going to have enough from those people. You didn't realize your father was among them. Or Nidrei Onsen, this is when something was against your will, or something was beyond your control. These four Nadarim, Srich and Sheila. So Rav Asi said, even though these four Nadarim are not really Nadarim, you have to go out of Tar Chacham, Sheila Chacham. Karmiskim and Shmuel, Rav Yehuda said when I said this in front of Shmuel, not in front of Rav Asi. Rav Asi said you have to yeshal on the Dharma. When I said in front of Shmuel, Amarli Tanaktani, he tiru chacham. It's a heter. It's not even it's mutter. It's not even a netter because it was a mistake. It was beyond your control. And you say you have to ask Shel Cham, you have to have Tar Sadarim. Rabbanan Savri Kishmuel. The Rabbanan in our Mishnah hold like Shmuel. This is what it doesn't need a Tar Sadarim because this was like a mistake. Why was it a mistake? Because I didn't know that I couldn't live without wine, or I didn't realize what I was doing. And Rav Shimon holds like Rav Asi, you still need she'ela. So Rav Shimon says you still need she'ela, and therefore it's still usher. Even though you say over here, oh, I know what a nazir is. and I became a Nazir. But I thought that the Chum would give me a heter because I can't live without wine, or I can't live without being a grave digger. That's my job. Or I'm the only guy in town, according to Rashi, who does that. So that's something that's considered beyond your control. But Shimon says you still need a tar sadarim. Whereas the Chacham say, no, it's mutter because it's called nidrei onsim, which are mutter without even a tar sadarim. Rashi says, even where we are now, the libo also. He fooled himself. He was fooled by his own heart. He thought that the chum would be matim. The guy got the onus when he thought it was more of a case where Rav Kana and Rav Asi each swore that Rav said a certain thing. So when Rav came and said, no, this is what I said, like one of them, the other one said, what did I lied? I swore falsely. So Rav said, no, you were fooled. You thought that was it. Your heart fooled you, so to speak. Your heart made you say something, so it was like beyond your control. Here too, he became a Nazir, right? But he thought that he would get a heter for the wine because he can't live without wine. So that was considered also an ones. So the onus is either that he can't live without it, so since he can't live without wine, that's the onus. Or the onus is that he thought that the Chum would give him a heter, and he was wrong about that. So either way, he's an onus. The Chum say, if you're an ones, nidrei onsim is mutter. So as soon as he said, I thought the Chum would give him, so he made a mistake because it was considered beyond his control, and therefore it's not an etter at all. According to Chum, but according to Shimon, you still need a tar sadarim. So that's the machlokas, and it's just 3 A's to learn the last part of the last case in the Mishnah. Either that we turn around Rabbanan, we reverse the Shitas Rabbanan and Rav Shimon, or we keep the Shitas. But one way to learn is because now you're being shoel on the netter, and Rav Shimon says you got to be showing the whole netter, not on one or two of them. Therefore, he says it's usher, or because he holds like Rav Asi that even though it's nidrei onsim, you still need shelas chacham. Says the Mishnah, Nazir. Listen to this case. Reuben says, I'm a Nazir, and I also want to shave another Nazir. When you say shave here, it doesn't just mean shaving. We call it tiglachas, the shaving. When a Nazir finishes his zeros, let's say after 30 days, he brings 3 karbanas, chatasol and shlamim, and he has to shave all his hair. He takes the hair and puts it in the fire underneath the shlam, the whole procedure there, besides the carbon mincha that goes along with it. So it says over there, if a guy, in this case, we say a guy says, I want to be a Nazir, and I want to do the tiglachas for another Nazir. I mean, I want to bring somebody else's karbanas. I want to be a Nazir myself, and I also want to fulfill somebody else's obligation to bring their karbanas, etc. I'll donate the karbanas for him. V'shama chavero. So Reuben said that. Then Shimon heard Reuben say that. V'amar v'ani also. V'ani, I also want to be a Nazir, and I also want to bring the karbanas for somebody else. Ima, you pick him if these two guys were smart. Megalchan says that they would bring karbanas for one another. Yimlav, if they're not so smart, megalchan is mecher. In other words, each guy said, I want to be a Nazir, meaning I want to go through the whole procedure, and then I'll have to bring 3 karbanas later. And I also want to donate somebody else's karbanas, right? I want to give him an aliyah too, right? I want to donate somebody else's karbanas. So each guy said that. So each guy really has to bring, let's say, 6 animals instead of 3, right? But if they're smart, each one will bring the other guys, and they only have to bring 3. Okay. Iboilu, Shama Chaver V'Amar Va'ani. What happens if he didn't say Va'ani V'Olai L'Galeach? He just said Shama Chaver V'Amar Va'ani, and he said me too. Mao, what is that? Va'ani Akul Dibur Mashma. Is he going on everything? Meaning, I want to be a Nazir, and I also want to bring 3 karbanos for somebody else. Oh, Dilma Apagi Dibur Mashma. Maybe it's only going on half. Va'ani is going on half, either on that I'm a Nazir or that I want to bring somebody else's karbanos. In terms of Apagi, if you say it's only going on half, Apagi Dibur Mashma. A ratio safe, is he going on the first half or the second half? The man said, Reuben said, I want to be a Nazir, and I want to bring 3 karbanos for somebody else. And let's say Shimon just said, Ba'ani, right? Just said, me too. I also. What is he going? Is writing on everything? I want to be a Nazir, and I want to bring 3 karbanos for somebody else? Or is it only one of the two? I want to be a Nazir, or I want to bring 3 karbanos. And if it's only one of the two on half of it, is he going in the first part or the second part? Tashma, Ba'ani, look at our Mishnah said. Our Mishnah says, Reuben said, Hareini Nazir, V'alayla Geich Nazir. Shama Chaver V'amar, Va'ani, me too, V'alayla Geich Nazir. He said both things. If they're smart, each one would bring the karbanos for the other one, so they wouldn't have to bring each 6, they'd each bring 3. Midikamar, Va'ani, V'alai. Since he's Va'ani, what did he say? The second guy, Shimon said, Va'ani, V'alai. Shma Miravani, Apagidi B'Koi. Otherwise, we just say Va'ani. When he said Va'ani, V'alai, right? Why do you have to say ani and a lie? So you see, ani is only going on half of it. Amri, okay. Ain't apologets going on apagati bore, mashwas going on half. Mi ratio safe. Is he going on the first half where he says I'm a Nazir? and if for the second I would also be a nazir, or a sefer is going on the second part where he says, and I'll bring the verse from the else. So the Gemara says the lashon is umina. So learn out from that case itself. Learn out from the lashon. Midikamer v'alai legaleach. Since he says alai legaleach, the second part he didn't say v'ani have a nazir. He said v'ani ani v'alai legaleach. Since the second part is galeach, he's talking about bringing the kavanos. Shema miravani al chilas deborah. So you see, v'ani is going on the first half. Mashma. So in other words, he's trying to say that when you say v'ani, it's only going on half and on the first half. I'm going to grade Rav Yeshua the Rava who says, how do you know it's this way? Maybe I'll tell you v'ani akula dibor. Maybe it's going on everything. If he just says v'ani, it's going on everything. V'imishum v'alai in this case, my kamar, what do you mean? V'alai ba'amilsa. And I'm confirming that I'm going to do this thing. In other words, if he would have just said v'ani, it means on everything. He's just saying v'alai, and I'm going to confirm that I'm doing this whole thing. Dilo tema'achi. If you don't say that, the Tani Seifa quickly learn to pay to next tomorrow's daf on the days. Look at Yud Beis on the days tomorrow's daf. I hope we're all the same volume. Harei legaleach. The Mishnah says there in the middle of the page. Harei legaleach chatzi nazir. I want to shave for a half a nazir's obligation. Doesn't mean a half a nazir. It means Gemara is going to say that he has to. He agrees to bring half the karbanos of a nazir. V'shama chaver v'amar v'ani alai legaleach. So there's another Shimon heard the same thing. Zemigaleach chatzi nazir. Zemigaleach nazir shalom. Zemigaleach shalom. Rav Meir says each one has to bring all three karbanos. You shouldn't say chatzi nazir. You should say the nazir of the karbanos of half of the karbanos of a nazir. Fine, but the Rabbanan say you bring half. But why did you have to say? Let him just say v'ani. Why did the second guy over there say v'ani alai legaleach chatzi nazir? They're not talking about accepting naziris. He's not saying nazir. This mission just says, I'm going to bring the karbanos. I like this guy's a nice guy. He's made himself a nazir. Now he can't work. He can't cut his hair and all that. Can't get a job. I'll pay for half his naziris, for half the karbanos. And then the second guy says v'ani. He didn't say v'ani period. He said v'ani alai legaleach chatzi nazir. Why does he have to say all that? Dilo temach. So now the Gemara says maybe v'ani means the whole thing. V'ani al kul dibar. V'imishum v'alai. Well, maybe v'ani means everything. V'imishum alai. My comment just means, and I confirm I will do this. V'alai ba'al milsa. It's upon me. I will do it, and I accept it with strong commitment. I do it. Dilo temach. How do you learn this mission on your base on a base? The Tani Sefer Arela Legale Chatzin is over Shema Chaver Ramalari the Chatzin is the mission we just quoted. Hasami Katar Tamila over there. There's two things. There's no two things over there, and yet you say Va'ani and you say Alai Legaleach. Elamai Kamer Alai Bahamilsi means Alai. I accept it. I confirm that I accept this upon me. Achanami Kamer Alai Bahamilsi maybe means that. So maybe Va'ani means everything. Amalei Rava Achiyashta. Could you compare those cases? Yeah, but Bishlam Aresha. If our Mishnah Sricha, you have to say va'ani means half. Ani means half. And then v'alai is on the other half on the karbanos. Fine. So sefer lo tzricha. In the sefer, you didn't like to say va'ani v'alai. You could have just said va'ani, but tana sefer lo tzricha mishum reisha tzricha. Since the reisha says, with the second guy, Shimon says va'ani v'alai to make clear because ani is going on the naziris and alai is going on the extra karbanos. Makes sense. And then in the Sefer, in the base on base, it says Vani Valai because of the Reisha. Aliyam at Reisha Lotzricha, Sefer Lotzricha. But if you say the Reisha, you don't have to say that at all because Vani goes on everything. And the Sefer, you don't have to say Vani. There's no reason to say what. So Tani Reisha Lotzricha, but Sefer, Tani Sefer Lotzricha. Why would you say both cases? If you don't need to say Valai at all, because Ani means everything, why would you say that? So it doesn't make sense to say Vani means everything. Because if it means everything, why did you have to say it all via lie? Doesn't make sense. If you tell me, oh, it just means to confirm it, fine, that makes in this case, but what are you going to do in that case over there? That case over there, it also means just to confirm it. Why bother? If the Reisha isn't necessary, again, he's countering that. He said it must be Valai means, maybe Alai means everything. And Val just means I'm confirming it. So what does it mean in the Sefer? Why did you say the Sefer over there? Again, so the Gemara says, yeah, Hachiashta, right? Rabbi said Hachiashta. If you say the Reisha needs it, it's not stam that you're confirming it, but you're saying the Reisha needs V'alai L'Galeach because Va'ani means only the Naziris. So I need V'alai L'Galeach for the Karbonos. So the Seifa, even though it wasn't necessary because there you're only talking about Kabbanas, you mentioned it Agav the Reisha. But if the Reisha doesn't need it and the Seifa doesn't need it, why did you mention it at all? Therefore, he disputes this and he says that Ba'ani does not necessarily mean on everything. Ba'ani means on half, and apparently means on the first half. When he says Ba'ani, V'alayla Galeach, Ba'ani is going on the first thing that he said, and the Nizir is going on the Karbanos. Okay, that's as far as that motion goes. But we have a different problem over here. The problem is, can you accept something that didn't happen yet? What do we say in our Mishnah? Reuven says, I want to be a Nazir, and I want to bring 3 Karbanos for somebody else. Okay. Somebody else presumably has an obligation already. Then Shimon says, me too. I want to be a Nazir. I want to bring 3 Kabbalah for somebody else. And the Mishnah said, if they're smart, they'll each bring for the other guy. Mamela, Shimon, we can understand, can bring for Reuven because Reuven was already a Nazir, right? Reuven was a Nazir. And he said, I want to bring 3 Kabbalahs. And Shimon says, I also want to be a Nazir. And I want to bring 3 Kabbalahs. Okay, you're bringing Kabbalahs now because there's another Nazir there, Reuven. But when Reuven said that, there was no other Nazir there yet. How does that work? That's tomorrow's Gemara is going to deal with that. But first, the Gemara is going to bring a preamble to show about that. What's that case? Rav Yitzchak. It's a long issue over here until we get to the question. We'll see it on tomorrow's daf. Rav Yitzchak Bar Yosef. Rav Yochanan. Listen to this case. You tell your messenger, say v'kadosh leisha. You can commission a shliach to v'kadosh leisha for you. He goes and says, listen, you are betrothed to the Mashaleach, Yankel, right? Yankel sent a shliach. And he says, you are betrothed with this ring in front of Adim, that works because Yankel commissioned him to do it. Let's say, so man tells a shliach to go marry a woman for him. They didn't have cell phones. They had no communications. The guy went on a long trip and he said, Kashnisha me. Also, he says, which woman did he commission him to marry? Anybody. This guy was willing to marry anybody. Just go marry a woman for me. I'm going to be traveling in that neighborhood. I like to have a woman handy for me. So marry somebody in Hong Kong. I'm going to be traveling to Hong Kong next month. Marry somebody in Hong Kong for me. Okay. Also, now this guy, Yankel, who commissioned him, can he get married here now? In the days when you can marry, polygamy was mutter according to the Torah, when you can marry somebody else. Can he marry somebody else now here? Besides that case, can he marry another woman here? No. Why?
Because it might be related to
exactly might be related to the one in Hong Kong that he married. You assume chazaka shliachas shlichuso. There's a chazaka. We take it as a given, right? At a presumption that the shliach fulfilled his job and he married somebody for you. Maybe the kivan delo parishle, right? Since he didn't say who he married, he doesn't know. He didn't say marry Jane or June or whatever for Sprinza. He didn't say marry a particular person. He said marry somebody. You don't know who he married for you, so you can't marry anybody. Why? Because maybe you're going to be maybe you'll be marrying her relative. You can't marry a woman who you're already married to her daughter or her mother or even a grandmother up on him. Huh? Yeah,
her sister.
Or a sister. Or a sister is a good case of a sister. We're going to talk about that, right? You can marry a sister while a sister's alive. You can't marry her. Okay. So Rabbi Yochanan says in the name of Rabbi Yochanan this halacha that if you tell somebody to marry a woman for you, you can't marry anybody else in between until you find out who that woman was. Till you meet her or he tells you who he married for you, the name of the person. So Kanstuma. Let's say a Zobar, Yoletis has to bring a pair of birds. Ola and a chatas bird. And you set aside, okay, here are the 2 birds. You didn't say which is going to be the Ola chatas, one of the 2 birds. Shaparcha goes man. One of them flew away. But you hadn't yet defined which is going to be the Ola, which is going to be the chatas. Okay. Goes and one of them flew away. Or it flew among chatos mesas. Remember, by animals, there's 5 chatos that you have to let them die. You lock them up in the stall and you starve them to death. Why? Because nothing you can do with them. Let's say a vlad chatos. You set aside your carbon and the chatos, some chatos for the commoner is a female chatos, female animal, and had a baby. So what do you do if you can't bring it as carbon? You can't do anything. It's carbon. So you have to let it die. Another example is, let's say a chatas shekipur baleh already had a kapara. So let's say one of these 2 birds flew and landed among those birds. You don't know which it is. There's nothing you can do with it. You have to let it die. Or one of these 2 birds died. You set aside 2 birds. You didn't say which one of them died. You could take a second bird and match it up. Take another bird. One of them flew away or died or went someplace where you can't define it. So you pick another one. But let's say you had two birds and when they're in front of you, you said this is the oldest, one on the right is a chatos, the one on the left is an ola. You define them. And when they're in front of you, you could see this is the chatos, that's the ola, right? Maybe one's a little bit bigger. And then one of them flew away. Now when one of them flew away, you don't know which one is left because you don't have two to compare. So you don't know which one is left. You have either an ola or a chatos. You can't bring it as a carbon because you don't know how to bring it. Okay, fine. So you can't do it. And you have to bring two new birds, right? Because you can't do anything with this bird. How can anybody else in the world bring a bird now? Maybe the bird that flew away, which was already designated as a chatos or as an ola, maybe that's the bird. Just like, what are the chances that the woman that you want to marry here is related to the one that the shliach married for you in Hong Kong? Very little chance of that happening, but you never know. Jewish community is small. He did separate a Jewish one, right? So maybe you don't know, but it's unlikely that you're going to just happen to marry this one, but you can't. Okay, but over here where the bird flew away and the bird was designated as an ola or a chatos for this particular person, and that flew away. So you say the remaining bird you can't bring. You got to bring two birds, but that bird's somewhere in the world, and somebody else may bring that bird as a carbon. How can anybody bring a bird? Maybe that's a bird that flew away that was already designated. Sharkin and the Alma, Miktan, they're okay. Why don't you say every bird is the one that flew away from this woman who owned it, and you can only bring it for her. Amalei Kamina Anna. So Rabbi Yochanan said, I'm talking about a woman, the Lonaida, who's not mobile. A woman is usually stationary. Called Fuda Bas Melach Penima. A woman's proper place is to be modest, not to be running around outside. So she's considered to be stationary. We have a rule called the kavua kamech tzanech. We learn from Arvla B'Kamla. It's a drasha that when something is kavua, it's like 50-50. So a woman, it's like a 50-50 chance, even though logically with numbers, it's 1,000,000 to 1 that you're going to hit one of her relatives if you marry somebody here now, and that you think your shliach got married for you to her relative. It's 1,000,000 to 1, but since it's kavua kamech tzanech, you're talking about a bird which flies away. There's millions of birds out there, and they're all running all over the place. There's very little chance, the ruba, the great majority, it's 1,000,000 to 1 that somebody's going to bring the one that flew away as a carbon. So that's not a problem. Anybody can bring a bird that you find two birds, you don't have to assume maybe one of them flew away from somebody who was a chayv, even if you know there was a case where the bird flew away. But it's unlikely this is the bird. And you go basarov. You can't ask me kash from woman because woman is considered 50. Maybe the woman is also mobile. Maybe he found when he found her, she wasn't at home. When he went to Hong Kong, Yankel Shliach went to Hong Kong. She was at the shuk there. They have a night market in Hong Kong. Maybe she was shopping over there, and she was shopping, and he found her there out in the street. So it's also based on row. And called the Ruben me Ruben parish. We have a called the kavuk. Sometimes we call the parish if it's separated, not in kavua. It's out there, mobile. Then you go basar rov. Even b'shuk ashkech v'kedesh asam v'kedesh and he was makadosh there. So just like by the birds, you say, don't assume that if you found the bird, maybe that's the bird that flew away from somebody who already defined it, designated as an ola shlamim, and flew away. The same way, maybe he married a woman who was in the street. He found somebody there in the shuk, and she was moving around too, and called the Rosh Miruva Parish. And you don't have to assume that the woman you found now is from the Rove. She's probably from the Rove, who's not related to her. Maybe says Hasam. No, in the case of the woman, she's only mobile temporarily, but she's going to go back home. She's going to be stationary. Gavikan, Mihara, but the birds always fly around. They're always Maruba. They're always called the parish. Therefore, the two cases are different. Okay, what does all this have to do with us? Well, we're talking about here birds, about a woman, right, Mary? What does that do? So tomorrow's Gemara, we'll see this. Tomorrow we'll just get a quick preamble. Amarava umod Rav Yochanan is moda v'isha she'ein lo b'lavas. What's the whole problem over here? That you sent the shliach to marry somebody for you in Hong Kong, and you don't know who the woman is, and you don't know who it is. Can you marry somebody here? No, because maybe she's related. Let's say the woman you want to marry here has no relations. She has no daughter. She has no parents. She has no sister. No, none of that who are married. What about Misha She'ain lo bas ben? She has no granddaughters, no daughters, no granddaughters, below aim. She has no mother, below aim, and no grandmother, below achos, and no sister who's single. She doesn't have a single sister. Then you could marry her because problems only, right? Problem is only, did she have a single sister that the shliach might have married you to her sister? Even though he had a sister, but it's shalach. Let's say she has a sister. Listen to this. Rav Yochanan's Moda, let's say this woman you want to marry now here. You sent the uncle on a shlichus to marry somebody. You want to marry, go say, oh, do you have any relatives? Yeah, I have a sister in Hong Kong, but she's married. Then it's okay. She's married already. So there's no chance. Maybe she got divorced afterwards, right? Then you could marry this woman over here, even though she might have gotten divorced later on. My time, but he shot at that time, the Kamerle, at the time that I commissioned you, having a seedling Lagabe, that this sister was married to somebody else. So I want to marry this woman here. And I sent the shliach to Hong Kong to marry somebody for me. And when I met this woman here, I said, do you have any sisters? Yeah, I have a sister, but she's married. Maybe she's divorced now. Even though she's divorced now, at the time he commissioned her, she was married. When a man makes a shliach, he points a shliach to something that's in front of him right now. If it's not in front of him right now, he can't do it right now. It's not possible to do right now. A person makes a shliach, he makes a shliach for something to do possibly right now. If you want to marry this girl, and she says, I have a sister in Hong Kong, but she's married. Okay, so then it's not a problem. Because when you make a shliach, I make a shliach for something I can do right now. If my sister in Hong Kong, if the girl's sister, the one you want to marry here now, after you send the shliach, she has a sister in Hong Kong, but the sister's married now, right? When you appoint her, you want to marry her now. So you'll assume that she's still married, even though she might be divorced. And if she might be divorced, maybe the shliach married her for you after she got divorced. That you don't consider. Because right now in front of you, not there. So right in front of you, she was married. Therefore, you're not concerned that maybe she got divorced later on. So therefore, now the Gemara's going to ask Kasha. This is already in tomorrow's daf. So what about our case? In the case in our Mishnah, where Reuben said, I want to be a Nazir and I want to be speaking about somebody else. Who else? There's nobody else here. You say if they're smart, they'll each bring for the other one. But they can't bring for the other. Reuben can't bring for the other. The other one wasn't there yet. Shimon only said, me too, I'll also be a Nazir and I'll bring Qur'ans for somebody else. Okay, when Shimon said, I'll be thinking for else, Reuben already was a Nazir. So you could say, I'm bringing for him. But when Reuben was a Nazir, said, I'm going to be a Nazir, I'm going to 3 kabbalas, Shimon wasn't a Nazir yet. So how can he bring 3 kabbalas for Nazir, for Shimon? That's what the Gemara is going to deal with tomorrow. Tomorrow's daf is daf Yud Beis. It'll be on the podcast. And on Sunday, Meretz Hashem, we'll start from the Mishnah at the bottom of Shabbos' daf, and the Yud Beis and Beis, we'll pick it up from that Mishnah. Have a good Shabbos, everybody. Kol tov.